First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of the members of the Chamber for continuing the tradition. And Carrie's been a great partner. We've worked on many things together, economic development and others. Just last week we were on a panel about child care. I value what the Chamber has brought and continues to bring to this community and all that you're doing. So Carrie, thank you for your leadership and all of that. And I'm very impressed with your financials. Someone who looks at those every day. Anytime you're in the black, for the business people out there, that's a good day, and that's a great thing. And so the management is good. And I guess that can segue into what I can talk about a little bit, because without that ability, and I say this often to ad nauseum in some ways. When I took office many years ago, and having said, usually when they say the longest serving, they go, oh, geez. But when I took office, many years ago, in 2007, that was the first goal. It was, we can't do anything. We can't build the county to where it needs to be. We can't inject and get the business community to believe in us equally if we're not good stewards of our money, but if we're also not able to put skin in the game and do things and have that money that obviously comes from our taxpayers and other sources to be able to provide more that this county needs in the way of economic development and of progress. And I'd like to think that we've done a pretty good job over the last 18 years in doing so, and because of that, a lot of what we've been able to accomplish is because we have money in the bank, because we invest wisely, and we put that money back into this community so that it benefits everything. And while still focusing on our number one role in government, or one and two roles of government, as I always say, public health, public safety. And with all that we have to do in Oneida County and the various departments, the various services we provide, that's always first. But if we don't have the economic environment, those other two pieces don't work either. So, in looking back, and I'll just take a trip back a little bit, and what we've been able to accomplish has been, again, because of that financial wherewithal, and because we're able to borrow, and the improvement in credit rating is so important. All of you and all of us know individually, if you're going to borrow for a house, for a car, for the second place, for whatever, if the credit isn't good, you're not going to be able to move. And the same applies in government. If our credit is not good, or rates are so high because our credit is bad, then you can't invest. So that had to be number one. And what really solidified that and moved the ball for us was the settlement agreement with the Oneida Indian Nation, about just now 13 years later, which really gave us that extra piece of that extra revenue source that allowed us to smooth out and really then be able to invest in things. And so where are we today after all of those years? Obviously, you can look around, and I just talked to a group last week and said the same thing, that this city, this county, looks very different than it did 10 years ago. It looks different for a variety of reasons. It has had more growth, it has had more progress, it has had more activity than even that was seen after wartime back in the 50s. But that industrial growth when things were happening all across the country. Just looking at the downtown landscape as I drive in every day from Rome and coming across the arterial and looking in Route 12 and looking at the landscape of the skyline of Utica, which is so different than it was. A hospital, the the revitalization, Nexus, the neighborhood itself, the lofts, all of the other pieces are things that have happened, and happened at a time when other areas were struggling a little bit. Remember, all of those things and up on the hill, whether it's Wolf Speed and what we've done out at Griffiths, all of those things really took place during a pandemic when a lot was shut down and we just got moving. And that's, I think, the best piece there. But what's next? So, what's next is building upon the success that we've had with all of these things, and what are the next steps? Obviously, the biggest announcement we had in the last 18 months, or, well, it's actually a year. A year ago this month, almost to the day, I think it was the 23rd of last year, we announced Chobani. 1,000 jobs, $1.2 billion of investment, which is right now probably double that as they continue to look at ways to expand. I mean, that's going to change the dynamics in so many ways of this community as a whole, not just in the city of Rome, because that's where it's located, but in terms of everything. But with that comes more responsibility on our part and more challenges. And what we need to do is invest in housing. We have a housing problem. We have a shortage. We recently did a study in which it identified that we need, over the next 5 years, at least 4,000 and another few thousand after that up to 2030. So, beyond 2030. So what are we doing about that? Well, we're going to have some interesting incentives and initiatives to instill in developers to build more housing in Oneida County, and all types of housing. We need single-family housing. We need apartments. We need townhouses. We need a mix. We need a mixed use. We need them for everybody. And whether it's people just starting, coming out of college and going to work, whether it's families that really need to upgrade, whether it's seniors that need to move into something else and spread out. We need all of that. So we're going to be doing that. That's a big piece. That really is one of the biggest pieces that we have to invest in over the next several years. And I'm going to talk more about that next week, about who's investing with us. The other piece with that, obviously, we have workforce challenges, which are good challenges. When I say challenges, those are not the bad thing. Unemployment is low. And what that means, unemployment is low, but jobs are high, and we need to fill those jobs. So we've been meeting with a number of employers on a regular basis, and many of our legacy employers especially, looking at the basis of what we have out there now and what we need to do. And we are going to be investing in a major marketing campaign across the state. People here know, and we'll tell them they know what we have to offer, but we need to do more. And we need to expand out into the state, because we've always recognized that everybody that lives here doesn't work here. And a lot of people that work here don't live here, and that's fine. We'd like them to live here. We'd like to see that population increase, and hopefully it will. But in the meantime, we've got jobs to fill. We've got good jobs to fill. And there are jobs in all sectors. And I think the other strength of Oneida County, working with our partners on the state level, but more importantly in the cities and in the towns and with the employers, is the diversity of employment that we have. I've always said, all the time, from technology to finance to insurance to manufacturing to agriculture, and really expanding on what Chobani is going to bring. That's a big piece for us. Along with that, a lot more growth. The other thing is, we've seen the growth in tourism, which we never really expected to be as huge as it is. And I say that with kind of not a doubt, but it was one of those things where we didn't think that, even with the investment that the Oneida Indian Nation has made, being a #1 resort across, in the Northeast, and expanding yet again. And there's another part for more jobs. In June, They're going to open another hotel and another restaurant. And then in September, the largest convention center in the Northeast. Think of what that'll mean for Oneida County and for our region. And we are at the center point of New York State. And looking at all of that, and we need to build upon what we've been successful with. That is tourism. And that is, credit to whether it's Munson, the Stanley, the Nexus, the arts and culture that we have to offer. The other activities, the golf courses, the lakes. There are 13 lakes in Oneida County. Probably didn't know that. I didn't know that exact number. I didn't know that. I knew there were a lot of them. I didn't know there were that many. Over 50 parks in Oneida County. Things for people to do. 25 golf courses. Wayne knows that, right? Wayne, there's 25 golf courses. You probably played them all, right? But 25 golf courses. I mean, what county of our size has that kind of growth? So the next step is, and at times I think the other strength that we've had is we've been able to pivot when things, are moving in a different direction. For years we invested very heavily in aviation, in trying to attract maintenance and refurbish operations, and we were successful for a time. That has waned. It has waned off very significantly. It is not an industry that is successful in the Northeast anymore. It is something that we have invested in because of Griffiths and all that Griffiths has to offer. That has not been as successful as we hoped. So what's next? When I look at those big hangars that we have, and they are very large, and I looked at them and we took a look and said, we've got to pivot. We have to take a look at what else can we do? What can we make out of this? And last year I proposed the runway, which would take those major hangar facilities and create an experience of sports and recreation like, I don't want to say like no other, because there are others, but like nothing in New York State right now to that size. Nexus has far exceeded our expectations. Hundreds of thousands are coming here on a yearly basis. It's just blown everything away. There's tournaments every weekend, there's competitions every weekend, there's activity every day of the week in most cases. There's activities on weekends except for Christmas and New Year's, and even then they're surrounded by them up until that time. So what can we do with the runway? The runway will be a multi-sports complex that takes the example of Nexus and just blows it up. No ice, because we have enough ice downtown. But it'll have tennis, pickleball, basketball, volleyball. And recently we put out a request for expression of interest. And the response has been amazing. We have several proposals that we're going through right now. The goal is that gets done in the next 2 years, and may hopefully sooner in a phased-in approach. That facility has the capacity, and just imagine in your mind the amount of space we have there, with 64,000 square foot in each of those hangars, and then another 200,000 inside. You could fit the equivalent if all you did was pickleball. And how many people play pickleball? Come on, there's got to be some out there. All right, 200. Think about 200. I mean, not that we're doing this. Just think about the number. 250 pickleball courts can fit in that place. So if you take that and move it into everything else and divvy it up with soccer and lacrosse and a track, and even baseball can be played in those hangars. The potential is limitless. So when I look at what's happening in economic development, we have to look at tourism. We have to look at what we can do to bring more people into the area, to have people see what we have to offer, but also to have this continuum of people and multiplying people by capital. Expanse of people in a particular area. The Nexus neighborhood is the other piece. Working with the city of Utica, with Robert Esch, and the proposal is, what we've always wanted was a hotel, another hotel right next to Nexus, connected by a walkway, and connected to other shops and pieces. That's what the Nexus neighborhood is. That was the vision I had years ago for the U district. That the district from the auditorium all the way over to Bag Square. And Bag Square being where Union Station is, and the storefronts and the restaurants that are there. And that area is expanding. And that is a walkability of the downtown. We're seeing, it's been happening across the country, but it's happening here. And it's happening here because we're investing. And because we're working with, in a public-private partnership with many of our developers to make this happen. The Nexus Neighborhood Bags Hotel will be a remarkable setting for this downtown, and really continue to expand on places like this and everything else that's moving forward. The blight that was here several years ago is gone. It's time to bring it back up again and add to that beauty. So when we look at economic development, big piece is Chobani. Obviously, looking at what's happening there, which is immense. Looking at the runway again in Griffiths, looking at the Nexus neighborhood, but also filling the gap of houses, jobs, and working on development is all key to making us a bigger and better community than we can be. I'm excited about this because it really does, the fact that we can see these things happening, and the fact that you just take a picture, if you have, think about what this area looked like 6 years ago. It's not that long. It really isn't. It's long because we dragged through, everybody was dragged through a pandemic, and we forget about the time frame, and we kind of, everything in our mind is well, was that before or was it after? Well, a lot of it, when we think about what it looked like before, totally different than it looks today. It's really exciting, and I think the growth is exciting. And I think the other thing, we have, I see President Sobriejo here from SUNY, what they're doing, and what we're doing together on AI, and working it and looking at ways in which that becomes another centerpiece. We're far ahead of, and we have an AI task force, we're far ahead of other communities in looking at how this is going to help us better provide assistance in education and economic development and business. And with that, Wolfspeed over just on the SUNY campus, we may have a neighbor for them soon. That's another one. There's a little tease that something else is happening up there. So, what we're doing here in Oneida County is really opened a lot of eyes across the state. I've heard from many of my colleagues, I've heard from other people about how you guys are really, you've got a little bit of everything. And the difference in the diversity, again, not only are we a diverse community with people and culture, we're a diverse community with business, and we have to keep that in mind. Every business is essential. Every business is critical. And keeping the diversity of the business community, and that's, I know, what all of you are doing, and everybody in this room, I can look around and I know that that's what it is, because that's where our strength lies. And if we can continue to do that, continue to make that investment in this county, again, 5 years from now, we can come back and say, wow, it looks even more different 5 years ago than it did then. A lot has to be done. It's a lot of work, but we've got a lot of great partners. And partnerships are what's key. So with that, I will step aside. I will thank you for your time today. Always available to answer any questions whenever and anytime you want. But again, I want to just thank you for the opportunity today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for what you do as a business community and all of your endeavors, and where we can help. And Oneida County is so business friendly that we understand and we get it, and our partners get it in local government, and we want to keep growing. Thank you.